Hello and welcome back to the Bird's Eye View podcast. We are here on Monday, March 30th after a opening weekend sweep for the Toronto Blue Jays. I'm your host, Zach Worden, joined as always by Jori Negin-Shecter. And Jori, baseball is officially back, and the Toronto Blue Jays certainly picked up right where they left off last season.
The road to 162 and 0 continues for these Toronto Blue Jays. A perfect series by and by. 50 strikeouts, setting a franchise record, I believe it was an MLB wide record.
Yeah.
The hitting turns out to be just as timely as it was last year. And please ignore the bullpen and all of the nonsense that came with that. But beyond that, full marks for an exceptional first weekend of Blue Jays baseball.
So obviously there's so much for us to get to here today. I think you look at the ceremony, you look at the 50th season celebration, you look at all three games, you look at the Leo Jimenez trade, like just a lot of things for us to get to. But I think we got to start with the ceremony. Really, really, really well done as the Blue Jays arrive here in their 50th season. How did you kind of take it in, and what did you kind of think of the banners and everything that transpired there on Friday?
I mean, I'm very pleased to say the least in terms of just the way that they were able to meld the eras. The angry Blue Jay era definitely gets a lot of flack, but I can't speak for you, but on my end, growing up,
It's
that
it's
was the
it's the
team, right?
childhood, right? Like, I mean,
I mean,
obviously we're gonna feel.
I've got a white Doc Halliday in my closet behind me, and I've got a black Aaron Hill, thanks to you, behind me as well, right? I mean, that is the era, and for them to give that era some love, and just on the whole, to give the kind of whole franchise a moment to just celebrate, even, amongst or rather amidst the celebrations of last year's run. I thought that was excellent. You had Vernon Wells and Jose Bautista, and uh, I mean, who else was Ernie Witt was
George
throwing out the
Bell,
first pitch. George Bell, like it was a beautiful
Pat
ceremony.
Henson.
Uh, Pat Henkin, I mean the the speech by Vlad and Springer was excellent. I mean, on the whole, it was really just a wonderful opportunity to celebrate this franchise and what they had accomplished last year, and kind of in the lead up to that, if you will, in the 48 years prior. But no, it was really quite a scene. I'm really fascinated too that they didn't have a Doc banner or a
Mm,
Pat Gillick
yeah,
banner. I would assume that those are headed to the
Hall
Hall
of
of Excellence
Excellence.
that is
Yeah,
to come. But I just, noticing some stuff. But yeah, they changed up the looks of all of the banners, and just a full refresh ahead of the 50th season, and a great celebration leading into, I mean, an exciting series, which we will get into.
yeah, really well done. I thought the fan thank you was pretty emotional. I think of just the seeing just how much that it means to different people, right? And how that run connected people from coast to coast, and obviously it's all been talked about ad nauseum at this point, but just really cool to see the different people in the video that were able to kind of express their gratitude towards the Blue Jays. So
Yeah, and
uh
even in the stands and stuff, I think there
yeah.
was a lot of just saw a lot of signs, a lot of like thank yous. I thought it was a very, as much as it was a looking forward kind of weekend because of the excitement of, opening day. There was certainly an element of kind of a looking back and a thank you for what a season it was in 2025.
So banners, you mentioned Halliday Gillick gone. 2025 AL East ALCS champions, not American League champions, go up, and the wild card banners stay. What did you? I mean, you got any banner takes?
Do I have any banner takes? I mean, I wish they didn't have the wild card one, I guess. And I think American League champs would have maybe looked a little bit sexier, but I don't know if I have a strong opinion on the banners that they chose to represent this past, what, 5 odd seasons of the Blue Jays history.
you, I don't think that you can complain too much about banners going up. So
No, I'd say that's about right.
So the ceremony leads into this first game, which, obviously kind of plays out slowly. Obviously I think these things always kind of take a little bit to get underway once, you have kind of that delay with the ceremony. And it was, 40 minutes after the start time of the game. But I mean, Kevin Gossman, like his first opening day start with the Jays, like just incredible outing for him. It was, 11 Ks, the Blue Jays record for most strikeouts on an opening day. He gives up one hit and it was the homer to Shea Langoliers. And then they just, they kind of slowly claw their way back in. It was their first comeback win of the year after going behind 1-0. Obviously, they get the little rally helped out by Denzel Clark in center field, and then Jeff Hoffman, and just so many different storylines like in this one day of baseball. But I mean, from that one, I mean, what was kind of your takeaway, if whether it was Gosman, Hoffman, or kind of having those two comeback efforts?
Yeah, it's got to be Gosman on game one. I mean, he was basically perfect. I mean, this is vintage Gosman to say the least. And if he's going to be doing this kind of stuff this year, you're going to be looking at potentially two real, true, genuine aces atop your rotation. And that's before we get into the Dylan Cease uh, exceptional outing that he had in game two. But, Gosman, the splitter, was doing its thing. He mixed in a couple of other pitchers. He kind of had said that the changeup was the one mistake pitch. I don't get the sense that's a pitch we'll be seeing very much if that was the case. But this is a guy that looks like he's still got tons in the tank, even after throwing 200 plus innings last year. And even on top of that, as a guy that had talked about this, excuse me, potentially being his last season, I mean, it certainly doesn't look that way from the way that his season started.
Yeah, I mean, great stuff from him. You can't complain when you get an outing like that. So, really good there. And then obviously, bottom of the order, Okamoto, couple of hits, Ernie Clement, couple of doubles, and then Andres Jimenez, of course, with the walk-off heroics immediately after Jeff Hoffman gives up Shea Langolier's second homer of the game, amidst a four strikeout inning. So, we can kind of combine, I think, the Hoffman and the Little topic here. Obviously, the next day, Little, comes in after Mason Fluharty takes a couple balls off the inside of his leg and has to come out and gives up the grand slam to Langoliers. Theme of the weekend for the A's was Shea Langoliers hitting homers. But I mean, for you, like, I mean, concern level with those two out of 10, I think, it's so early, and realistically, the Little one, the pitch was below the zone. The Hoffman one, it was like 97 at the top of the zone. Like, what's the concern level for you between those two guys?
Yeah, and almost none, but I mean, at the same time, it's the same usual suspects having issues in the early going, which doesn't exactly bode well for what's to come. I mean, the Jays have repeated that the concern with the bullpen is negligible, if that. I mean, before the season, Ross Atkins so much as said that they weren't looking for a closer this past offseason. I mean, four strikeouts with the fastball getting up to 98 from Hoffman kind of tells you all you need to know about what his outing was like. I mean, listen, the pitch he threw to Langoliers, everyone's saying if that pitch was a baseball or two higher, then he probably swings right through it. I don't even know if that's true. I think that pitch gets swung on and missed at about 80% of the time. It's 98, basically up at the eyes. It's just Langoliers putting an exceptional swing on that pitch and taking a yard in a crucial moment. But also, the homers were an issue last year for Jeff Hoffman, and if they continue to be an issue, then certainly he's not going to remain your closer. The Brendan Little one, I mean, listen, that inning on the whole, I mean, just ridiculousness above ridiculousness. Two balls clank off of Mason Fluharty, who has to be yanked from the game. And then, Little can't find the zone and he gets into a tough count. And then the grand slam obviously just sucks the air out of the building. I mean, I would have liked to have seen Little use that fastball velo that he seems to have discovered during spring. It seemed like he was leaning on the knuckle curve, which is his pitch, but obviously if he's not getting whiffs, it's just not going to work. I mean, this is a guy that showed 98, flashed 99, I think, in spring even, but really didn't go to those pitches at all and was concerned about his ability, evidently, to locate that. That's something that he's going to have to do to be successful this year because very clearly, if he's just going to throw the knuckle curve, it's not going to be something he can land for strikes. He's going to have something he can land for strikes and not get pummeled. And yeah, the pitch he threw to Langoliers that went out was about a foot below the zone. He golfed it out. But again, the usual suspects having homer problems. It's just, you'll put the little red star next to it and you'll see what happens in the weeks and, months potentially to come. But it continues to be a concern potentially for this Blue Jays bullpen is the long ball.
Yeah, it's funny because, Hoffman obviously had the home run issue last year and then had an excellent postseason before Game 7 of the World Series. And Little was kind of the opposite, right? Where he didn't have a home run issue last year in the regular season. I think he only gave up two in the regular season, and then of course now his last three outings that we've seen were Game 5 of the ALCS against the Seattle Mariners, Game 3 in the World Series against the Los Angeles Dodgers when Freddie Freeman hits the 18th inning walk-off home run, and then this one against the A's. So the guy who gives up two home runs all of last year in the regular season has given up three the last three times we've seen him take the mound in a real baseball game. So yeah, certainly not anything I think you're super concerned about at this point. I think Little, like the body language on the mound, like concerns me a little bit. Like Hoffman, obviously is like an uber confident guy who bounced back very well in the save to end the series. But Little, I think like just the dejected look that comes across his face to me sometimes. I'm kind of like, well, it's not great, but I think that's a guy that you could certainly um that he could certainly be an impact guy for this Blue Jays team this year. So we'll kind of see
Yeah,
what that
well,
looks
the
like.
volume that he could potentially provide, right? I mean,
Yeah.
last year he did it. If he can get to that kind of volume this year and have success throughout the season, that's going to be a key contributor in the bullpen. I mean, I took him first among the
Yeah,
relievers
yeah, yeah.
in our war draft, and it's not looking so hot right now. But I think just on the pure volume, there's a chance that he's going to be in there a lot. I mean, behind maybe like Rogers, I don't know who else is going to get that kind of volume out of the pen. You would figure that he's going to have some success if he can keep the ball in the yard because that's why he had success last year. I mean, it
Yeah.
just kind of
Well,
again just remains to
I
be seen whether he can do it again.
I think right now Fluharty is your number one lefty, right? Like there's not really a question about that right now.
Yeah, but even with him, like who knows what you're going to get with him? Like he's effective lefty. I wouldn't call him a shutdown lefty.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, he came back, which was good that he was able to pitch the next day, got a strikeout. So, we'll kind of see how things unfold. Like one area where there isn't kind of like that next level of depth at the minor league level is like this left-handed reliever group, which is why so many people are high on Javen Coleman. And as much as I love Javen Coleman, like he's going to be starting the year in Double A, so you need Fluharty and Little to kind of step up at the start of the year here. So. They'll certainly have their tests here with the Rockies. They got a couple left-handed hitters, the Dodgers, coming up after that. Of course, we've seen Fluharty kind of play a big role against them. So, yeah, we'll see how things unfold. But as far as those two, I mean, I think that's like from this opening weekend of three straight wins and some really exciting baseball, like that's kind of the only negative thing that you can kind of look at and say, those guys continued something that concerned you at the end of last year. So, as far as the rest of it goes, though, I mean, we can kind of move on unless you have anything on the game one comeback, or comeback or bounce back or whatever you want to call it. I think Okamoto obviously acquits himself very well with the two hits and some defensive plays that he makes nicely. Jimenez with the walk off and then says, being a world champion makes you feel different. Like you have any other thoughts on that one, or are we good to move on to Dylan Cease?
Well, yeah, let's look at Dylan Cease here because that's a guy. that looks like an ace. I mean, we talked about Kevin Gosman and the ace capabilities he demonstrated. I mean, the Jays starters had, I think it was 23 strikeouts through their first two games.
Yeah.
MLB record for most strikeouts through two games from two starting pitchers, tied with the 2013 Texas Rangers. Uh, the Jays are cooking with some gas here. There's a reason he was a guy that was targeted so early, so aggressively early in the off season. And all this talk about, oh, it's an overpay and you know all that was, hogwash, ridiculousness. This is very clearly a guy that with even the most modest of tweaks, had the stuff to be in the Cy Young discussion because he'd been in the Cy Young discussion twice in the last 5 years. So to see him come out to start the season and just annihilate Athletics hitters was just an absolute blessing to watch. Like,
So
this guy looks like an ace and is going to be a Blue Jay for the next 7 years.
So obviously, Blue Jays pitchers this weekend strike out 50 A's, which is the MLB record for most in a team's first 3 games of a season. It's the Blue Jays record for most in a 3 game series. They fell short of like the most in a 3 game span by one. And I mean, Dylan Cease obviously was kind of at the forefront of that. Of course, he has the record for strikeouts in a Blue Jays debut, with the 12 of them, and he kind of gets not quite singled out, but kind of unluckily bounced from the game in the 6th inning. But I think if you want to look at something from this weekend, that obviously small sample size noise is so loud at this point of the year. But Dylan Cease coming out and throwing 6 pitches, and the changeup gets 100% whiff rate, and the changeup was something that we've seen him work on, and it was something that really profiled as a nice addition for him. So for him to come out and get like really excellent returns with that, the slider was 15 whiffs on 21 swings. How different is it for this Blue Jays rotation to have Kevin Gausman go out and do what he did, have an addition like Dylan Cease? Obviously we'll get to Eric Lauer, but for this rotation to go from Gausman, Bassett, Barrios, Scherzer, Bowden, Francis, who are good pitchers, but certainly not like striking out the world. For them to go to this group where it's Kevin Gausman and Dylan Cease, and even if you want to look a little bit further down the line, Trey Savage coming back, Shane Bieber, like guys who are a little bit more of the swing and miss artists. Like, how different was it to get like jarring almost? I thought to watch them work.
It's a different group, not even in name, but in makeup, in attitude, in effectiveness. It's just a completely different scenario for these Blue Jays. It's a beautiful question to have. I don't know how they're going to fit all five guys here. I mean, did you even mention Cody Ponce?
I did
Like,
not. We'll see him
that's
today.
another
Yeah.
guy that, as early as game one against the Rockies, we're going to see what he's got in store.
So,
I
so,
mean,
so quick aside. So the Blue Jays strikeout totals: Gosman 11, Cease 12, Lauer 9. Over under for Cody Ponce against the Rockies tonight has got to be like 7.5.
I'm taking the over on that pretty comfortably. Like, listen, Cody Ponce isn't going to strike out the world in the way that Dylan Cease is, but this is very clearly a capable guy that could fill in very, very effectively as a four on a good team. And I mean, depending on how things go, even tonight, we could learn a thing or two. And maybe this is a totally different Cody Ponce, and maybe the kick change is something different. And all of a sudden, hey, here's another guy striking out double digit hitters for the Blue Jays. Like, this could get really fun really fast. And the way that the Jays have found all of these starters that can generate swings and misses, they've obviously spent a lot of time valuing the ability to throw a lot of innings. But at the end of the day, it's only so valuable if you're going to throw 190 innings of 4.5 ERA ball with 7 Ks per nine. There's a difference between what Jose Barrios has been providing the last 2, 3 years and what Dylan Cease is going to provide this season.
Yeah. I'm feeling pretty good about my Dylan Cease leads the American League in strikeouts. Bold prediction. Feel like that one's obviously off to a good start. Um, really just a odd game though, because Cease, dominates for the first half. Fluharty and Little kind of have the bullpen implosion in the seventh inning, and then the Blue Jays they just battle, man. They come back once again. They're down 6-2, add a run, they score one in the seventh, two in the eighth. Kirk hits the game tying home run in the ninth, and then they both score in the 10th, and then Spencer Miles comes in and gets the win in the 11th with the Ernie Clement walk-off single. Once again, um, a team intentionally walking the batter in front of Ernie Clement before Ernie comes up with a walk-off hit. It happened twice last year, and he's obviously off to a hot start on that front here in 2026.
Yeah, I mean, Ernie Clement, for all he brings to the Blue Jays and his strengths and weaknesses, I'm not sure he's the guy I want to face in extra innings when the whole thing is he's such an elite bat to ball guy that he's going to put the ball in play.
Yeah.
But I mean, the Jays get some contributions down the lineup. Andres Gimenez, I don't think we've mentioned him yet. He had a huge series, buoyed by a 600 BABIP, which is obviously not going to last. But I mean, up and down the lineup. I mean, Kaz Okamoto had a big series, and we'll get into him I'm sure, in kind of our game 3 recap, so to speak. I mean, I'm just thinking who else down the lineup
I
contributed.
mean, like let's talk a little Spencer Miles because like really nice debut for him because he warms up when they're down by a bunch, and then of course they switch it up. They go Varland and Tyler Rogers, and Miles gets the call in the 11th, and he comes in, and the first batter he faces is a comeback to him, and he turns around and just perfectly manages the runner at second base. Exactly what you want your pitcher to do in that situation. Strikes out Max Muncy for his first ever strikeout, and then is able to get out of the inning. So I think you look at him, like, really cool moment for sure, and the stuff looked good. You could kind of see maybe I think the one at bat he lost Kurtz. I think that they were pretty well working around Kurtz in the series, but for him, like, just a really cool moment, and I think that's a guy that I obviously he hasn't pitched above high A before that. But it just kind of showed you why he was their Rule 5 pick and why they ultimately decided to keep him on the roster.
Yeah, if he's going to pitch like this, he's going to stick for sure. I mean, he didn't get tagged or anything too bad. He's generating whiffs, obviously the strikeout. I think he got up to high 90s as well. Did he get to 99? He definitely believe he got to 98. But if he's going to be thrown in the high 90s and providing this kind of execution, I mean, whatever you want to call it, pitch this well, you're going to get opportunities. Is he going to be in leverage spots like he was in game 2 of the series? I mean, they're going to avoid it where they can, but the fact he was able to come in a spot like that and not look particularly out of place, not look like he was overtaken by the moment, so to speak, that to me signals good things to come. And again, all of this comes with the caveat of, you know, take it with a grain of salt that is within a grain of salt. Like,
Yeah.
this is the smallest of small sample sizes, but that's what we're working with. And when you're working with that for a guy that hasn't pitched above A ball, it's a good sign.
You're talking Veal. I mean, we didn't even mention this, but Dylan Cease hitting 100. Like, come on. Like, that's when was the last time a starter threw 100 in Toronto? I think I saw it was like Brandon Morrow. So,
Yeah, for
um,
sure. It would have
insane.
been ages and ages
Yeah.
ago.
But before we move on to game three, I do just want to, like, I mean, two comeback wins for them where, they fall behind in game one, and then this one they fall behind 6-2. Like, how do you feel that kind of bodes for, the vibe and the general feel around the 2025 team, like, transferring over into 2026?
I mean, I'd rather they blew the doors off everybody, but I'd prefer they come back and win than fail to come back and lose. Uh, Again, small samples, it's 2 games. hard to read too much into really anything. There's no trends to, you know, read into. What you have in front of you is what you have in front of you, and that's about it. But to that end, the fact that they were able to muster up those comebacks, to me, it signals nothing but positive vibes or whatever you want to call it. I mean, try not to make it a habit, I guess, would be the ideal scenario. Try to run away with it if you can. But on the whole, better to, chalk those into the win column than to fail to mount a comeback and walk away with the loss.
Yeah, 100%. Game three, I guess, kind of more falls into that category where they, get out to the early lead. George Springer, yet another leadoff home run. And then they just kind of add on to it. They hit 3 home runs. Jesus Sanchez and Kazuma Okamoto both leave the yard in the game. Eric Lauer kind of dominates for 5 1/3, 9 Ks. I tweeted about this, but just like the amount of whiffs that he got on his fastball, it was 12. It was the most whiffs that he's gotten with his fastball since 2022. Just really, kind of a nice way to finish the weekend. I think, the bullpen was really solid behind him. I think they gave up 1 or 2 base runners in the last like 3 innings of the game. So really, really nice win there. I think, Vlad picks up a couple hits. Obviously the Okamoto homer backside, like, we kind of talked about this guy, being like a pull heavy home run hitter, but to see him hit a ball 110 the opposite way, like how can you not be encouraged about that?
Yeah, that's a huge homer. I want to talk about this Eric Lauer stuff just to start
Yeah.
because that story's kind of you were really kind of digging in here. Like, what do
I
you
just
make?
I just thought it was pretty shocking that the A's were swinging through so many 91 mile per hour fastballs. But no, I mean, like obviously Lauer, really good pitcher, had a really good year last year. Um, yeah, I thought he looked good. The fastball we were kind of looking at it like it's not like he was leaving them over the heart of the plate like they were in the strike zone, but just getting like that level of in zone whiff was something that I don't think that we've ever really seen from him. So, the 9 strikeouts from him, it's funny like working the 3 games on the desk, and each game I'm kind of sitting there and I'm like, all right, Kevin Gausman is about to break the opening day strikeout record. Got to get that story ready. Dylan Cease is about to break the Blue Jays debut strikeout record, and Eric Lauer's coming out here racking up the strikeouts. I'm like, oh my God, am I gonna have to write another like strikeout record story? And of course, ultimately, you do because they set the MLB record for most strikeouts in the first 3 games of the season. But overall, I mean, just like impressive stuff from Lauer. I guess you get a little bit of help from the A's on that scenario. I don't know if they were just really looking soft or kind of how that was, but um, you know, what, you want to talk about the 2025 Blue Jays carrying over into 2026 and Eric Lauer being an important piece of this pitching staff and filling in for where there was a need is happening again.
I mean, that's the story right there. That was basically the biggest, well, maybe not the biggest, but the biggest pitching story of 2025 for the Blue Jays. And in 2026, it looks like chapter 2 is well underway on the Eric Lauer front. I mean, the A's, I thought they looked competitive in there. You again kind
I
of
mean,
dug in
they
and were
struck out
like,
50 times. Like
yeah, like you kind of put that
they struck out
theory to
40
bed.
45.5% of the time.
They looked dangerous at times. I don't know, man. I mean, listen, when your top lineup is, Nick Kurtz and Tyler Soderstrom, and I mean, obviously Shea Langoliers was a beast this series, and Brent Rooker is still Brent Rooker. And I mean, I'm forgetting guys. I've only gotten 4 down, and I mean, they're a top 5, arguably, lineup in baseball. I mean, I thought that they still struck some fear into me, even though they were whiffing all the time. But again, to you, you just didn't see it.
I mean, like the Kurt stuff, I thought that they just worked around him. He walked a bunch in the series. I thought that they were just not pitching him. They were kind of like, we're just going to let the other guys beat us in the lineup. And Langoliers did to a certain extent. You said Rooker, it was Rooker, I think, struck out like 60% of the time in the series. So, Soderstrom and, like it's a good lineup. I think obviously, there was probably a little bit of a mix of them both maybe not being ready for the level of intensity that the Blue Jays were bringing to the field, and them being a young team, and with them maybe pressing a little bit as the strikeouts started to rack up. So, I think you look at a guy like Jacob Wilson, who struck out way more than he ever has before, and Lawrence Butler was only got 4 plate appearances, and then the bottom of their lineup was obviously really struggled, and Denzel Clark, not a great start to the year for him. So, um,
Not the finest homecoming, no. Well, I mean on the flip side, like the Jays offensively that game, but it was the best they looked offensively to me.
yeah, yeah, no, for sure. I think the homers are obviously really really nice to get. The Springer one, um, coming off the Lauer 3 strikeouts was pretty electric. The Sanchez one, like just an incredible swing from him on that pitch, 3-0 hacking to go straight away center. And I mean, I think the Okamoto one, it's the excitement level around him is pretty crazy. So I think that's kind of the one that you look at. But just overall, Vladdy picks up 2 hits in the game too, and it kind of looks like he's like right on the edge of doing something big. So I would imagine that that's going to come here against the Rockies. Dare I say, against Tomoyuki Sagano tonight, which feels like a pretty good matchup for this Blue Jays lineup. But I mean, let's do Okamoto, because I think if you want to talk about like main storyline of the weekend, it's his kind of arrival where. He picks up, I think it's 4 hits, walks a bunch, and just has like an overall really nice debut.
Yeah, it looks like a big leaguer, looks like a contributor. Um, Probably too early to make any sweeping claims on him, but the 110 the other way is a pretty significant development, I would say. Maybe just like a little shy of kind of the Goldilocks zone of, the max EV you want from like a superstar, but like this is very clearly a guy that's going to be able to swing it. I mean, the StatCast pages have updated in some cases, and he's in the 90th percentile defensively. I'm not sure that's going to last. I mean, he made some nice plays out there in the field. I wouldn't say he was sparkling or anything out there,
He's made all the
but
plays so far, which I mean, I guess is all you can kind of ask for. But
hasn't
um,
looked out of place at third
no,
base,
not at all.
like some other third base options around Major League Baseball, noted former Blue Jays and so forth. But like to me, it's the story of the weekend is, beyond the pitching on the hitting side, for sure, Kaz. This is a guy that is gonna have to be a contributor for these Blue Jays to have success this year. And if he's going to be going up there and hitting balls the other way 110, it's as good a sign as you're going to get.
Yeah, really nice performance. Obviously, I think couldn't have asked for much more. Is there kind of anybody else? I mean, on the offensive side that stood out to you? I mean, obviously the Sanchez homer. I mean, you're kind of more on the
I,
Sanchez
I,
train than I
if
am,
you'll
so
give,
I'll let you go on that one.
yeah, I'm quite pleased to say the least on what we saw from Jesus Sanchez. This is a guy that I mean personally, I was putting him in the Addison Barger camp of get ready for the breakout. It is coming. This is a guy that can crush baseballs like very few guys on this team that can swing it. And as basically for all of eternity, and by all of eternity, I mean his career, has been pounding balls into the dirt. And it's going to take some tweaking, it's going to take some adjustments. But this is a guy that should and likely will, in my estimation, be a key contributor for these Blue Jays this season. And obviously didn't get the start in either games 1 or 2, I believe. But like, this is a guy that has the chance to provide the pop and the missing kind of swing and thump that the Jays lineup right now seems to be a little bit lacking. I mean, obviously 3 homers in the third game of the series, and Kirk goes yard at the end of game 2. But I mean, the missed opportunities of game 1 to score more, even game 2, they had some opportunities and weren't able to capitalize. This is a guy with the chance to slug for these Blue Jays like nobody named, outside of Vladimir Guerrero Jr. The the opportunity is going to have to be there. He's going to have to get more shots at it in, place of a guy like a Nathan Lucas. But if they give him the chance, he should and could be an immensely important piece of this lineup.
Incredible work by the Sportsnet cameras after his home run to immediately go to David Popkins with like the biggest shit eating grin that you'll ever see in the dugout. Yeah, interested to see how that all plays out there. Obviously, I think the potential, the batted ball data, how hard he hits it, how fast he swings it, like there's so much potential to potentially be unlocked there. I saw an Astros account tweet after his home run, just like, all right, man, like come on, after he struggled so greatly there in Houston.
This episode of the Bird's Eye View podcast is brought to you by BioSteel. Use code Bird's Eye View at checkout for 20% off your order at biosteel.ca. Again, that's code Bird's Eye View at checkout for 20% off your order. For all your high performance hydration needs, visit biosteel.ca. Thank you again to BioSteel for sponsoring today's episode.
I think overall, like that, a lot to be encouraged about. The pitching was obviously so great all weekend long. Seeing the offense, kind of come around. I think that the first game you kind of give them the pass on after the long delay, and then game two, Jeffrey Springs just kind of does his thing against the Blue Jays. So, really nice way to get started. Before we kind of move on, I mean, is there kind of any other things that caught your eye this weekend from the team on the field, other than just being excited that we were watching meaningful baseball again?
I mean, that's the big one. It's great to have baseball back. It's great to have the mascots back. I mean, I'll be very interested to see how the offense looks against the Rockies because there was no offensive explosion for these Blue Jays, and last year, obviously, they largely got by on a extremely effective offensive attack. And last year they put up 40 or something runs against the Rockies over the course of that series last year.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not at Coors. I would be very surprised if they were able to rack up that kind of damage. But this is a series they should. The run differential discussion, if we're going to have that early in the season, I mean, this is where they should start stacking that one.
Blue Jays ninth in team WRC plus through the first weekend. I feel like we've almost buried the lead though by getting this far into the episode without mentioning Dub Gleed, because the Blue Jays finally come to an agreement on a deal to send Leo Jimenez, who was obviously designated for assignment and had to pass through waivers. So they decided, instead of letting him kind of test the waivers waters, they just trade him to the Miami Marlins for William Stanton Gleed, better known as Dub, and $250,000 in international free agent pool money. Your thoughts on one Dub Gleed?
My thoughts on Dub Gleed are that that is an electric baseball name. And if he has more than 25 appearances in a Blue Jays uniform, then that trade is a win. Um, the name sticks out as I'm sure as for most people. The 250 cash might end up being the more valuable asset in that deal.
Yeah.
Sad to see Leo Jimenez go. The auto Lopezification of Leo Jimenez.
We literally dropped that comp. Like when we were talking about it in the season preview, we're like, it feels like, maybe a little bit of Otto Lopez in him, but
I mean, listen, it's a shame for him to ultimately have to find greener pastures elsewhere. Very clearly, a guy that deserves a shot at a big league role. Should get an opportunity in Miami, although very clearly blocked by one Otto Lopez. So we'll see what's to come. But I mean, a guy that you hope has some success at some point.
yeah, I mean, like Doug Gleed, I don't want to dive too deep into like what to expect, because I would, set the over under for like his career big league appearances at like 1.5, basically Does he make the big leagues? Hard to say, but good contact profile kind of fits what the Blue Jays want to do. Touched AAA last year, kind of in an emergency role, so not a lot of power. Obviously, I don't know much about the defense. We'll figure out. I would imagine that he is going to start with AA New Hampshire. So
Yeah, org depth is definitely the sense.
yeah, like you said, the international bonus pool money, could be put to good use. Obviously, we saw them kind of make some later splashes last year, and we'll kind of see how that all plays out here in 2026. Before we end, though, obviously, I did want to bring this up just based on we spend so much time during the spring talking about Canadian baseball and the World Baseball Classic, and of course, one Owen Casey came to the forefront very often during those conversations. And you want to talk about the Marlins and their opening weekend sweep of the Colorado Rockies, and I don't think you can do that without Owen Casey, who of course caps it off with a walk-off home run, hits 500 for the weekend, and just has an incredible Marlins debut.
I want to let you kind of run with this because there were a couple other stories around Canadian baseball. Liam Hicks also hit a homer
Yeah.
this weekend, but the Owen Casey story, uh,
Yeah,
just an awesome start to his season.
yeah, I don't want to go too deep into it. Like, obviously, we're here talking Blue Jays, but really cool to see Casey do that. He had two doubles, the homer, 4 RBIs, and for a guy who kind of has some swing and miss concerns, he wasn't swinging and missing that much. So if you want to talk about like dark horse, NL Rookie of the Year contender, he's certainly in the mix. And I mean, just what like an overall weekend for rookies around the league. You talk about Owen Casey, you talk about Okamoto, you talk about Murakami, you talk about JJ Weatherholt, Kevin McGonigal, Chase DeLauder, like just like what a way for baseball to
Everybody,
come back.
all the young guys, that PPI incentive, what an absolute slam dunk that has been.
Keeping Pirates keeping Connor Griffin in AAA though for some reason. Not for
Yeah,
some reason.
for
I
no.
understand it, but um we don't need to debate Connor Griffin here today. Before we go, you have any final thoughts on this weekend, the upcoming series against the Rockies or the White Sox, or anything that you generally saw this weekend that you want to touch on?
Baseball, baseball,
She's back.
baseball.
All right. Well, with that, that is going to do it for us here today at the Bird's Eye View Podcast. Make sure to hit the subscribe and like buttons if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening along on the audio provider of your choice, make sure to drop a follow and review. You can follow all of us on Twitter. I am at Worden_Zach. Jori is at Jori Negin-Shecter. And the pod is at BEV_pod. Thanks so much for listening and enjoy the games this week.